Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Objective, where we discuss current events through the lens of the practical philosophy of objectivism. Today, we're going to be talking about a MP, a Labour Party MP from the UK, named Jess Philips, who supposedly got better treatment at the NHS because she voted for the ceasefire. This is what she claims. Of course, with state-run facilities, political considerations are going to become primary over the health of the people who are patronizing the place. So, I could name a few different reasons why I think she might have gotten better treatment. I'm here with my favorite prosecutor, James Valliant. What's up, man? Long time no see.
Too long. Always too long, my brother. I mean, what's better than hanging with Lucifer? Anyway, yeah. Wow. This obviously on the face of it violates all kinds of rules that they have over there to make sure that medical services are provided equally without regard to political or religious affiliation. Obviously, if you have socialized medicine, that's what you have to do. But I want to ask you, how do you enforce that? If I see someone there who, let's say I went to high school with them, oh, I haven't seen you in such a long time, wink. And then they suddenly get ahead of the line. I don't care if the line is at the Department of Motor Vehicles. I don't care if the line is at the National Health Service. It's impossible to enforce preferential treatment, and it's going to be inherent in there. And let me go further. Obviously, this pro-Palestinian advantage that she got for her having this, because she took a stand, mind you, more pro-Palestinian than her own labor government. And so she goes to a hospital. Now, mind you, it's interesting, in the link to one of the articles, she said, I've seen better hospitals in war zones and in third world developing countries. She had a line like that, which kind of, for a Labor MP, that's a big vote of confidence for the national health system there in Great Britain. In any case, wait a minute. If this was Sinwar and I was the treating physician and he was on the gurney in front of me, there's no way I would treat. Now, generally speaking, ethically, if I were a physician, I would want to treat people, and I would make a general rule that I treat everyone the same, regardless of their religion or political background. But if it was Adolf Hitler, if it was Sinwar, the mastermind behind October 7th, and I'm the doctor and he's there bleeding on the gurney, I'm going to let that mofo die. Okay? Guess what? You cannot force doctors, lawyers, teachers, anyone else to give the service that you think they ought to give. That's built-in error that is problematic with any socialized service. A doctor should be able to be preferential and say, no, get the hell out of my office. I'm not going to treat you. And that's what the free market is all about, frankly. Now, will there be a doctor who'll treat him? Yeah. But look, you're going to have stupid, unenforceable rules because of socialized medicine. Socialized medicine is going to force doctors to act against their own value judgments in marginal cases, sometimes even. But the point is that this is built in. It's like public education. You can't teach math without teaching values. You can't teach anything without, to educate is to have a built-in code of values. There's no such thing as value-free education. Nor should we impose value-free medical care. And the answer, ladies and gentlemen, is freedom, getting the government the hell out of these important services. It's built in, it's baked into this socialized medicine cake.
So you're not necessarily disagreeing with what the Palestinian doctor did, jumping her to the head of the line, but you're saying this is actually a feature of any system. Preferential treatment is a feature of any system, but the state system it requires people to follow rules with respect to equality that it can't possibly follow.
If you ask me, this doctor was morally wrong and corrupt for doing so. Now, was the doctor acting in accordance with the doctor's values? And should doctors be allowed to act in accordance with their values, even if I disagree with those values, as I do in this case? And I just want to make it clear, the doctor, if this is true, clearly did violate a dozen rules that they've got protecting patients against such quote, preferential treatment when it's supposed to be a socialized service. So the doctor violated rules. In this particular case, I don't share the doctor's values at all. All I'm saying is that doctors should be free to use their own value judgments when it comes to things of this kind. It's more than that. It's impossible, really, to, as I say, to enforce a truly non-preferential system when it's a, a privilege or a grant from the government that's supposed to be equal to everybody. There's no such thing as government being equal to everybody. It's like that old myth that they had about Jim Crow laws and segregation in the South. Oh, we could have separate and equal. Separate can still be equal. No, 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 no. I'm going to go further than that. Government cannot be value free. Government cannot be value equal ever. Education, healthcare, you name it. And that's one of the reasons why government should have nothing to, and this is true with every economic regulation, whether it's medicine or anything else. Anything the government does is going to have a value preference that the government ought never to have. Everyone gets equal treatment before the law. That is the absolute requirement of what rights consist of. And when the government puts out its shingle and starts providing any service, it's going to have this kind of corruption built, baked right on into that cake.
Right. The only thing that you can, I guess, somewhat fairly equally distribute is justice, I guess, or some form of force. But when you're talking about the market, you're talking about contextual values that can't possibly be satisfied on an equal footing. But now apparently the Palestinian doctor told her in the office, wink, wink, nod, nod, you're voting for my people, so I let you in. This is, of course, hearsay. I don't know if this would be admissible in a court of law as evidence against the person, but certainly she got in the front of the line because she's an NP. And in a political system like the NHS is, the political watchdogs, the not watchdogs, the political elite are going to get in before you anyway. This is what's baked into the system, is that political concerns will come before individual health concerns.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, there's something to be said culturally about what's going on in Britain. If this is what's going on, the doctor herself said most of the doctors in the area appeared to be Palestinian. And are you going to tell me that there isn't generally preferential treatment being given if most of the doctors in that area come from a certain cultural milieu? Of course not. They will. And like I say, even if they're doing it just subconsciously, but it tells you something very disturbing about the values that have, Great Britain is steeped in right now, anti-Israel attitudes that will get a pro-Palestinian MP preferential treatment in Great Britain. I want all my British friends to think very, very hard about that context. Should Zionists, should Jewish patients have some concern in the wake of this story? Yeah, the National Health Service is for everybody, including Zionists, including Jews, and given the positive treatment here, can we be sure that there isn't negative treatment on the other side? Oh no, you go to the back of the line. You don't go to the front of the line, you go to the back of the line. But as I say, this is inherent in the government doing anything. The government, Joe Biden calls Mark Zuckerberg up and says, that's a nice social media platform you got there. Be a shame if anything happened to it, Mr. Zuckerberg. And now these are the items we want you to suppress, news items we want you to suppress. You can't, once the government starts down the path of economic regulation, there's no way to protect what we would otherwise call civil liberties, like equal treatment before the law or free speech. Really, you can't do it. Socialism means a violation of civil liberties inherently, always. And you simply cannot avoid this kind of preferential treatment. Far better to allow people to have that choice, to make the economic competition set the rules rather than the government. It's far less easy to cheat your bottom line than it is to sort of wink and let someone ahead of the line in a government system. That real easy to do. Not so easy if the demands of the bottom line and profits are what are really motivating you. But like I say,
ironically, people hold that bottom line as not an indicator of ethics, that it would press you to do the right thing, but that it forces you to do the wrong thing. And we're saying the opposite here. that bottom line, that consideration for profits is actually providing greater value to the people, not less. It's not making people cut corners to cheat people, but actually forcing them to create better values for the people that they're serving. But this leads me to another thought. Like the NHS is one of the most well-protected institutions in the UK. It seems like everybody knows it sucks, but everybody refuses to give it up. This has sort of raised a bit of a controversy over there. Now, would you think that controversy will result in people second guessing their premises with respect to
Uh,
the
you'd have
National
to
Health Institute?
you have to think in principle. You have to think conceptually here, and there has to be an integrated. See, people I think are very happy to sit on contradictions. If I were to explain what I just went through to the ordinary Brit, I imagine they say, well, then we have a conflict here that we need to resolve and balance, interests that need to be balanced, protections. I know it can't be perfect, but we got to have this national health system. And if I were to say, well, wait, y'all are paying for the health system anyway, and you guys aren't getting any choice, any quality. Besides, there'll always be this preferential treatment. Well, there's just certain contradictions with socialism, perhaps, that we just got to live with, Jim, and I'm not going to think it through. That's very frequently the response, the pushback I get. It's as though the National Health Service is an axiom. We can't get under it.
Well,
We
it
can't.
is, in a sense, it's almost axiomatic to the altruist perspective. I mean, it's certainly a product of it, and they're not questioning that at all. I think one of the most revealing things, it was in the article I read as well. I didn't read the Telegraph article, so I don't know if it was in there, was the description of the place that she's been to hospitals in third world countries that were better. I have experience in Paris hospitals that were socialized, and it was an awful, awful, awful experience. Now, you think this would be enough? The people's daily experience with the NHS, their frustrations, the fact that they get pushed to the back of the line, not only because somebody's privileged, but because, their particular condition doesn't merit, the spending. So that person has to go through, 3 or 4 more years of acute pain because as far as things shake out with respect to the collective, their disease just isn't bad enough to consider at the moment. You'd think all of those, regular daily concrete experiences would turn people off to the NHS, but no.
Absolutely. And here again, profits are our friend. But the fact that economics is driving. Look, it's the famous case in Colorado of the baker who refused to do a wedding cake for a gay couple and their wedding. Now, wait a minute here. The baker should be free to have whatever values they want and refuse to do whatever cakes as a private business. Now, is that private business suffering a loss? Yeah, that's a customer you don't have. That means the competitor baker across the street is going to get all that business that you are turning your nose up at. And so you're giving yourself a huge, when you indulge the irrational, on the free market, you pay a price. The free
Not
market,
just
yeah.
Not just that, you got to consider that one customer likely means 50 or 100, or in today's social media, you perhaps 1,000 other customers, because that person is going to pass on a reputation in the community with respect to you that will be rather unsavory. It might appeal to some folks, of course, but now that one customer you've lost is potentially responsible for 1,000 others.
Now imagine this story comes out with his Labor MP. What would be the effect on Jewish or Zionist patients? I'm not going to that doctor. I'm not going to that hospital. And that would be a protection that the free market provides. If you actually want a more rational approach to this, the free market is your friend here, people. Socialism is inherently going to have some kind of preferential treatment. And as I say, it's unenforceable. All these rules you've got there in Britain against this are simply unenforceable at the end of the day. And so, if you really want equality of treatment, if you want rational distribution of this, what you want is the free market.
Well, ironically, it said in the article I read that people are wondering if there's a two-tier system in the UK because of this treatment of this MP. But there is a two-tier system. There is a concrete, verifiable two-tier system. There are people who can use private insurance over there and go to their own doctors. Now, of course, you have to be fairly affluent to do that, but that is a two-tier system.
Everyone
Or
I know
affluent
who's
people.
moved to Britain has said, I'm getting private insurance. I don't care what it costs. You know, if I know people are going to be staying for extended periods of time in the United Kingdom, they uniformly say that. They
Yes.
uniformly say that to me. I'm getting my own private insurance, even if it's super expensive.
In fact, in Paris, I've been to two types of hospitals. The first one was that socialized medicine place, which ended up billing me 4 times, and it wound up being a fairly expensive visit. I guess because I'm not in the system and didn't have a carte vitale. But then the second time I had to go to a hospital in Paris, it was the American hospital in Paris, which was a entirely free market system. So it was pay as you go. And I ended up paying slightly less than the socialized system for immediate help, immediate medication, being seen by a doctor within 5 minutes. Um, it was a rather great experience, but I had the capacity to be able to pay for that, out
Well,
of
you
my
know,
pocket.
I have, in America, we don't have Medicare for all, as Kamala Harris said she once wanted. We do have a system that forces employers to provide health insurance through their employment system. So it's still a private insurance system, but sort of a mandated private insurance system. And even we have all kinds of problems because of the government control and mandates over the health system. In America, I like to compare the system to when my dog gets sick and I take him to a veterinarian. That's pay as you go. You can buy private insurance if you like, they sell it, but it's amazing how much less their overhead is, how much more customer directed the whole thing is. Frankly, dogs in some ways get more can get more specialized, better treatment, and more cost effectively than humans ever do. You know, they'll do an X-ray, and I'll say, "Well, an X-ray. I remember what my last X-ray at the hospital was," and they'll say, "Oh, no, 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 we'll do it for something like 10% the cost." And it's
Yeah,
an
but
X-ray.
it's precisely because it's deep pockets of corporations that are forced to pay for these insurance companies that they overbid their services because they know they're going to negotiate with the insurance company that's just in the deep pocket of the corporation, and the person's pocketbook is not really going to be affected. So they have no incentive. They have no incentive to curb their behavior. They have no incentive to economize, when it comes to doctor treatment because everything is paid for in advance.
That's it. You want someone's economic interest there on the table. Otherwise, there's going to be waste. Guaranteed, promise.
And you could buy insurance for your animal that would help you with catastrophic issues or end of life issues where care for a pet becomes quite expensive.
Well, yeah,
And
there are
you
procedures
leave
and
with the money.
surgeries that cost thousands of dollars even for animals. I mean, that's just the built in. But I'm just astonished at how much cheaper it is to get a similar kind of service, like an X-ray or antibiotics or something like that. It's astonishing to me how the regular health care of my dogs is so much more cost effective, customer oriented, efficient than it is for my wife. And that just doesn't seem right to me.
Ask me, ask me how much a 6 hour stay in an emergency hospital bed costs me, or how much they billed my insurance company for.
How much? 6 hours in a emergency bed?
Yeah, 6 hours.
How much?
Just take a guess.
Wouldn't want to guess. $2,000?
$32,000.
Holy
Okay.
moly.
You want to talk about overbidding. And then, they're overbidding because they're going to get an inflated price and they're paying for people who are coming in there who are not in the insurance scheme, right? So I'm paying for other
What did they
people's.
do? Give you surgery? What did they do? I mean,
I sat there. I
give you a
sat in
heart
bed.
transplant? What
I,
were they
I
doing?
occupied a room. I occupied a little room, in a bed, which was far better than what I got in Paris. In Paris, they put me on a gurney, put me against a wall with about 35 other people who had various conditions against the wall too, with a nursing center smack in the middle of us, and they left me there for 6 hours. I could not communicate with anybody. It was terrifying.
Oh my God. Absolute hell. The
Yeah.
government, the more the government, and things like healthcare and education are like that, the more urgently we're told that everybody needs it, the more urgently this is a benevolent thing that the government is doing, the more they screw it up, the more help. It seems that the more government help that we get, the more crisis we inject into the system. If you look at the cost, the inflation in education costs and in healthcare costs, they are wildly higher than any other inflation. You'll have even back, let's remember the days before our current inflation issues, back when inflation was down at 1 or 2%, at least officially. Education and healthcare costs were always annually many, many times that. And it's been all my life since the advent, funny, since the advent of this Medicare thing in the 1960s, medical costs have done nothing but soar beyond the regular inflation rate. And you look at hospital bills from the 1940s and 50s, it's absolutely, and you even adjust for inflation, and it's absolutely mind-boggling how much more cost-effective it is. And I remember too my grandmother telling me stories about the days of yore where if you needed some service immediately, some doctor was always there to provide it. Oh, we'll work out the costs later, because a lot, most doctors do want to help people. People often ask me, why do I do things for free? I do them selfishly. I like my work. I like what I do. And if doctors would do sliding scales, pay as you go, even for
And they
people who
came to your
have
house. They made house calls. There's such a
house
thing as
calls.
house calls back then. They would come to your front door. They'd come into your bedroom. They'd help you right there. You didn't have to go to the
Yes.
doctor.
Right, right. And
Wow.
what we've done is we've priced the middle class out of higher education. We've priced the working class out of healthcare because we're so concerned about providing everybody healthcare and education.
Yes, well, this should be a lesson to everybody. The more necessary a thing is, the more it should be subject to the free market and not the government. Don't swallow Kool-Aid, folks. Don't let the government parasitic class tell you otherwise. We have a few super chats here. Bonnie for 99 cents. Thank you very much. Race Jacobson has been a member for 7 months. Thank you, Race, for joining us. Jeff Bannister, $3 Canadian. Not sure what that amounts to in American. Probably fairly close. I also want to make a couple of announcements here since we only have about 7 minutes left. Upcoming shows at 6 p.m. UK time. Right after this show is the reality show on Is Britain cracking down on pro-Palestinian activists? That is the question. James, do you have any final thoughts with respect to this MP, the NHS, and where people should stand on this issue?
Well, I think that if this is true, the doctor in question should be given all kinds of grief for not only violating the rules in place there, but I think Brits should step back and consider the anti-Semitism soaked culture of their political environment today. And it's disturbing, and it's very disturbing. And of course, finally, like you say, they should actually question their sacrosanct National Health Service, because guess what, folks? This is just the tip, I am certain, of a much bigger iceberg of preferential treatments that must go on in such a socialized system. Uh, yeah,
Absolutely. Unfortunately, the more I read about Israel and the conflict that's been going on there, well, since the mandate days, I see that there's been a culture of anti-Semitism in Britain for a very, very, very long time. We may be seeing it now because it's so out in the open, but I think one of the British governing mandate principal politicians over there spit on the ground as he was leaving and taking the British forces with him. So there is a long tradition of betrayal of Jews and of Israel over there. So this just seems to be Britain as it is, and hopefully it will change because that's a pretty scary environment to be in. I'm certainly hesitant to go there. I have to go there in a couple of months, so not looking forward to it.
stay safe and don't get sick.
Yes, yes. I
Any
can't.
of your videos here, you'll get at the bottom of the line.
Oh, I definitely will. They'll try to kill me, as a matter of fact.
Who knows? Exactly. Oh, isn't that funny the way we do? We misattached that IV to Mr. Pellegrino. Oh, yeah.
But he
That's
just needed
concern.
stitches, and we removed his testicles.
Well,
Who knew?
not intact is a major accomplishment. Yes.
All right, we're going in all the wrong directions, but folks, you've been listening to the Daily Objective. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to go to the reality show if you want some more objectivist answers to the problems that ail the UK. We are the solution, I believe. James, it's been great hanging with you again for this half hour. I hope to see you again soon.
Always, my brother. Be well.
All right, everybody, just remember to check your premises. Peace.